Hello and welcome. With more happening on Russia-Ukraine war, Russia launches more drone attacks on Kyiv. 74 Rohingya arrested in India in US crackdown. Giant strides claims as Marcus Mark's first year. State of emergency in Ecuador after murder of mayor, and S&P reduces Bangladesh's stance to negative from stable. Talking Russia-Ukraine war, local authorities said on Tuesday Russia launched a nighttime drone attack on Kyiv, adding that all incoming drones had been shot down and early information indicated no damage or casualties, reports said. The reported attack comes a day after Russia warned of tough retaliatory measures after a drone attack on Moscow, some 500 kilometers, 300 miles from Ukraine. Sergei Popko, Russia attacked Kyiv with strike UAVs. Head of the Kyiv City Military Administration said on Telegram without specifying how many or where they had been launched from. The air alert lasted for 3 hours. All air targets were detected and destroyed on the approach to Kyiv, it said. According to the information at this moment, there were no victims or destruction in the capital. Reports from Russia said Russian forces claim to have destroyed 2 boats and killed 9 service personnel, while reporting another Ukrainian attempt to land on the occupied left bank of the Dnieper River near the Antonivsky Bridge in Kherson. The area has been contested for several weeks with repeated reports that Russia has repelled Ukrainian attempts to seize a bridgehead on the southern occupied portion of Kherson region. The Russian Federation claimed to annex Kherson in 2022. The defense forces knocked out the Russian military from positions near Adrivka in the Bakhmut direction and continued to advance north and south of Bakhmut, said the spokesperson of the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. The UK Ministry of Defense has issued its daily intelligence briefing on how it sees the war progressing, and today the focus is on Odessa. The ministry writes that since 18th of July 2023, Russia has conducted greater numbers of long-range strikes against Odessa and puts this down to the end of the Black Sea grain deal. Since Russia failed to renew the deal, the Kremlin likely feels less politically constrained and is attempting to strike targets in Odessa because it believes Ukraine is storing military assets in these areas. Since the beginning of the war, Russia's strike campaign has been characterized by poor intelligence and a dysfunctional targeting process. Indian police say they have detained 74 Rohingya refugees for living illegally in the northern state of Uttar Pradesh in a move activists condemn as an arbitrary crackdown on people fleeing violence. The members of the majorly Muslim Rohingya community were detained in 6,000 cities in the state, and 10 of the refugees were juveniles, police said on Monday. The Rohingya Human Rights Initiative campaign group said the detained people have been living in the area for about 10 years after fleeing persecution in Myanmar. Several had been doing manual labor, including rubbish collection. Initiative Director Sabakar Min said they have only been damaging refuge. He added, hundreds of thousands of Rohingya have fled Myanmar to countries including Bangladesh, where borders India, after Myanmar's military killed tens of thousands of people belonging to the minority community, raped women and burnt dozens of their villages. The United Nations said the military campaign against the Rohingya was carried out with genocidal intent, and some of the military generals are facing a genocide trial at the International Court of Justice. New Delhi has not signed the 1951 United Nations Refugee Convention, which spells out refugee rights and states' responsibilities to protect them, nor does it have its own laws protecting refugees. Approximately 18,000 Rohingya lived in India as of early last year, according to Rohingya Human Rights Initiative co-founder Ali Johar, with ongoing cases in the Supreme Court against their deportation. Rohingya activists in India have campaigned against the arrest, urging the government to uphold commitments to human rights and democratic credentials. Now on politics, on Monday, vehicle traffic around Metro Manila, the Philippine capital region, was unusually light, but it was not because President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. was delivering his State of the Nation address sooner to mark his first threatened a strike to protest gaps in the government's plan to phase out their vehicles, so Marcos cancelled school and work at public offices for the day. but neither the fate of jeepneys nor the country's deteriorating transportation crisis figured in Marcos' 75-minute speech, in which he also tiptoed around other pressing controversies such as territorial disputes with countries around the South China Sea and investigations into the thousands of killings during his predecessor Rodrigo Duterte's drug war. Instead, Marcos described a country in rebirth and robust recovery from a socio-economic slump that he blamed on the war in Ukraine and the COVID-19 pandemic, but that critics say was also a consequence of the tumultuous administration of Duterte, whom Marcos' family had helped bring to power and who in turn paved the way for his presidency. I know that the state of the nation is sound and is improving. The new Philippines has arrived. Marcos capped off his speech touting his administration's new slogan, which he launched a week earlier. It was a high final note to a speech that started with him acknowledging that inflation was thus far his administration's biggest problem, citing the downtrend in inflation that went from a 14-year high of 8.7% in January to 5.4% in June. Marcos said that in spite of all the difficulties, we are transforming the economy. We are stabilizing the prices of all critical commodities. There is a rhetorical deftness to Marcos, observers said, according to reports, and it has buoyed his administration's mediocre performance in the public's perception, not least because of the contrast with Duterte's disorderly rule and crude, dissonant messaging. We now have a president who's more statesmanlike, who knows how to deliver a speech in a presidential manner, Joyce Ehlers, co-convener of the advocacy group Democracy Watch Philippines, said, according to reports. It is a trait that has afforded Marcos narrative control, another analyst said, and which has enabled him to maintain high public trust and approval ratings of 82% in opinion polls, despite some severe economic problems Filipinos faced in the past year. Talking gun violence, a state of emergency has been announced in 3 provinces in Ecuador after a shooting that left 2 people dead, including the mayor of a major city. In announcing the step on Monday, Ecuador's President Guillermo Lasso paid tribute to the 2 victims, Agustin Intriago and Ariana Estefania Chanque. No mother should have to bury her children, and no child should grow up without their parent, much less because of a criminal attack, Lasso wrote on Twitter. Today, Ecuador is in mourning. Lasso added that a suspect in the shooting has been taken into custody while investigations were underway. The shooting took place on Sunday in the port city of Manta, where Intriago, 38, had recently started a second term as a mayor in May. He had been re-elected in February. Chanque, a young football player for the Las Dragonas team, had approached the mayor to talk when the shooting broke out, according to reports. She also died from her wounds. 4 additional people were wounded in the attack as security officers around the mayor returned fire. No motive has been released for the shooting. On business and economy, S&P Global Ratings has reduced Bangladesh's long-term rating outlook to negative from stable, citing risk the country's external liquidity position could worsen in the next year while foreign exchange reserves remain under pressure. Tuesday's ratings by the agency said it expects the economy to expand between 6% to 6.4% annually between 2024 and 2026. Bangladesh's gross domestic product GDP growth fell to 6.03% in the financial year ended June 2023. The South Asian nation is battling to pay for imported fuel because of a dollar shortage, and its dollar reserves have shrunk by more than a third since Russia's invasion of Ukraine to stand at $29.85 billion as of July 19th. S&P reaffirmed its BB long-term and B short-term sovereign credit ratings on Bangladesh, but said they could be lowered if external debt or liquidity metrics worsened further. Lower generation of current account receipts than we expect, a higher overall current account deficit than we forecast, or a failure to materially boost foreign exchange reserves will indicate downward pressure on the rating, S&P said. Bangladesh needs favorable trade and financial flows to stabilize its external settings in the next 12 months, the agency added. The country of nearly 170 million people has already had to secure a $4.7 billion loan from the International Monetary Fund (IMF) this year as it deals with higher costs of imported fuel and food. The negative ratings outlook reflects the deteriorating economic conditions and could hamper foreign investment, further weakening the confidence of international leaders, said Kondaka Goloza Moazem, research director at Think Tank Center for Policy Dialogue. This will cause either more uncertainty and more cost to weigh the growing risk of uncertainty in repayment, he said. Moazem said measures were needed, particularly in subsidy management and energy imports, which are the main weaknesses in the foreign exchange reserve situation. The government needs to take bold actions in this regard, including substituting importing energy by exploring gas and substituting energy imports for power, agriculture by solar-based and other renewable energy measures, he added. Here are more stories. More evacuations as Greece encounters wildfires. Many people have been evacuated from the Greek islands of Rhodes and Corfu as Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis declared that the Mediterranean nation was at war with wildfires raging across the country. On the resort island of Rhodes, one of Greece's leading holiday destinations, the flames remain out of control for its seventh day, forcing hundreds of people to flee their homes and hotels, according to a fire brigade spokesperson. The latest evacuations were ordered after 19,000 people, mostly tourists, were moved in buses and boats over the weekend out of the paths of the fire that reached several coastal areas from nearby mountains. It was the country's biggest evacuation effort in recent years. On the western Ionian tourist island of Corfu, about 2,400 visitors and locals were also relocated as a precautionary measure from Sunday into Monday. Evacuations were reported on the island of Evia and in the mountainous area in the southern Peloponnese region. For the next few weeks, we must be on constant alert. We are at war, the Greek Prime Minister told Parliament. We will rebuild what we lost. We will compensate those who were hurt. The climate crisis is already here. It will manifest itself everywhere in the Mediterranean with greater disasters, he said. He warned that the nation faced another 3 difficult days ahead before high temperatures are forecast to ease. Still on climate crisis, in Africa since Algeria battles wildfires, severe heats kill 30. The government said on Monday, July 24th, wildfires raging across Algeria during a blistering heat wave have killed at least 25 people and forced mass evacuations. Over 20 people were left injured as the fires raged through residential areas in the Interior Ministry noted. In the Boria province, the Zabar resident recalls how the fire started. The North African country recorded 97 blazes across 16 provinces, fanned by strong winds as temperatures hit 48 degrees Celsius, 118 degrees Fahrenheit in parts of the nation. The largest and deadliest fires ravaged parts of Baija and Jijel in the Kibel region east of Algiers and Boria southeast of the capital. The president on Monday expressed his condolences to the families of the deceased, both civilian and military. The Interior Ministry said that 7,500 firefighters and 350 fire trucks were mobilized to fight the blazes, aided by aerial firefighting support. Operations were underway to extinguish fires in 6 provinces, it added, calling on citizens to avoid areas affected by the fires and to report new blazes on toll-free phone numbers. Fires regularly rage through forests and fields in Algeria in summer, and this year have been exacerbated by a heat wave that has seen several Mediterranean countries break temperature records. In August 2022, massive blazes killed 37 in Algeria's northeastern El Tarf province. It was preceded by the deadliest summer in decades, with 90 people killed in such fires in 2021, particularly the Kibali region. In neighboring Tunisia, temperatures on Monday neared 50 degrees Celsius. Fire rage again in Tunisia pine forest in Tabarka near the border with Algeria after another blaze in the area last week. Flames were fanned by winds and the temperatures reached near 50 degrees Celsius. At least 300 people were evacuated by sea and by land from the nearby village of Malola, according to the National Guard. Still in Africa, peace talks for Sudan held in Lomé. A top envoy to Sudan's paramilitary Rapid Support Forces on Monday, July 24th, said it was time for peace after 100 days of violence and destruction. Can Sudanese warning powers choose peace? Yusuf Ezzat made his remarks in Togo, where he was attending talks intended at preventing Sudan's Darfur region from slipping or sliding deeper into war. Sudanese people are suffering from war for decades in regions like Darfur, in Blue Nile, in South Sudan and East Sudan, and now in the capital in Khartoum. So this is the time to end the war and to start a new future for Sudanese people. Peace, development, justice and equality. That's what we are looking for, and I think it's time for peace in Sudan. Azad added that his side will participate in any kind of meeting for peace and bringing people together and stop the war in Darfur and in Sudan. On the front line, fighting showed no sign of abating on Monday. A representative from a major Darfur rebel faction attended the Lomé talks, welcomed the creation of a roadmap to prevent the region from plunging into a state of chaos. It is now in a state of chaos, but not in a full-fledged civil war. That's what we are trying to avert. That is why we put a roadmap and an action plan where we could follow through that and work with other community leaders, other leaders within Darfur, even within Sudan itself. Darfur in Western Sudan, some of the worst bouts of violence in the conflict in the nearly 2000s, the region another bloody war which it never fully recovered. The representatives in Togo's capital discussed ways of reopening Darfur's El Guinea airports under RSF control to bring in humanitarian aid. The Togo talks came after rights campaigners in Darfur blamed the RSF and allied Arab militias for reported atrocities in their stronghold there, including rape, looting and the mass killings of ethnic minorities. A deadly power struggle has pitted Sudan's army chief against his former deputy commander of the paramilitary RSF forces. Since April 15th, the fighting has turned Khartoum and other urban areas into battlefields. The sprawling region of Darfur saw the fighting turn into ethnic clashes. The conflict derailed Sudanese hopes of restoring the country's fragile transition to democracy, which had begun after a popular uprising forced the military's removal of longtime dictator Omar al-Bashir in April 2019. A coup led by the military and RSF disrupted the democratic transition in October 2021. Meanwhile, pro-democracy leaders were meeting Monday afternoon in Egypt's capital, Cairo, the first such gathering of Sudanese politicians since the breakout of the war. Let's take a short break. When we come back, I'll bring you more stories. Stay with us. Welcome back. Here are more stories from Nigeria. Begin with Labour ASU protesters criticize palliative plan. On Monday, the groaning occasioned by the removal of the fuel subsidy raised louder as the Nigeria Labour Congress NLC said it was prepared to fight the economic pains and hardship caused by the federal government's decision. Also, university workers under the aegis of the Senior Staff Association of Nigerian Universities, the University of Lagos chapter of the Academic Staff Union of Universities, Congress of University Academics, and protesting members of the Edo Civil Society organizations lamented the subsidy removal and its attendant pains. The varsity unions decried the situation, saying the subsidy was unintelligently removed. The National Assistant Secretary, NLC, Chris Onyeka, said the Central Working Committee of the Congress will hold an important meeting today and take a position. He said all issues around the suffering of the masses because of the recent price hike in PMS price will be addressed at the meeting. Meanwhile, the Trade Union Congress has halted plans to permit state governments to roll out palliatives to citizens to reduce the impacts of the hardships caused by the removal of fuel subsidy. President Bola Tinubu had, during his inaugural address on May 29th, announced the end of the fuel subsidy regime, which instantly shot up the pump price of premium motor spirit, popularly known as petrol, from 165 naira per litre to 540 naira per litre. The product currently sells for between 568 naira and 617 naira per litre. Speaking on the economic pains brought about by the fuel hikes, the National President, Senior Staff Association of Nigerian Universities, Mr. Ibrahim Mohammed, in an interview, said that no specific progress had been recorded since the fuel subsidy was removed, adding that Nigerians were in anguish and distraught. On Monday in Benin City, Edo State, citizens took to the streets to protest the increase in hardships imposed by the fuel subsidy withdrawal, which had led to sharp hikes in fuel pump prices as well as an increase in prices of goods and services. The protesters marched through the major streets in Benin like Mission Road, Akwakwa Road, Saponba Road and others. Speaking also, the president of Talakawa's parliament, Kola Edo-Bayi, said it is no longer news that the poverty rate has increased under the watch of our president. It is sad that we are where we are today. We cannot continue like this. Imagine lawmakers proposing 70 billion naira payment when the masses are suffering. Addressing journalists on Monday in Abuja, the TUC president Festus Osifo stated that governors had not been specific about what they intended to do. Condemning the hike in tuition fees, he cautioned the government against any policy that could render workers' salaries useless. He added that the student loan, which according to him had stringent provisions, should not be a yardstick to increase tuition fees. In a related development, Kwara State Governor Abdulrahman Abdulrazak has approved a slew of palliatives to neutralize the effects of the recent removal of fuel subsidy, cutting across the different sectors and demographics of the state. Meanwhile, the governor of Ogun State, Darko Abiodun, on Monday approved palliatives to cushion the hardship occasioned by the removal of fuel subsidy by the federal government. And finally, on the news, Obasanjo says Nigeria has let down Africa, the world. Olusegun Obasanjo, ex-Nigerian president, yesterday said Nigerian political leaders have disappointed Nigerians, Africa, the black race and the world for failing to make the nation the giant that everyone expected her to be. He spoke at the public presentation of a book titled Reclaiming the Jewel of Africa, written by Dr. Olusegun Aganga, a former Minister of Finance under former President Goodluck Jonathan. The former president disclosed that his choice of appointees was guided by love for Nigeria and humanity, fear of God and track record of performance. Chief Obasanjo pointed out that peace and security must be addressed for the nation to make progress. In these connections, let me identify two of the major issues which are interrelated on the factors for all-round development. These are peace and security, which we cannot achieve without justice, equity and inclusive society. And telling ourselves the truth, we have not done well on this cause in the past years and the last decade and a half. The former president said that there was a direct link between out-of-school children and Boko Haram terrorism bandits that have been killing innocent Nigerians in the last 14 years. According to him, and I quote, I will also point out that the issue of education, where over 20 million children that should be in school are not in school. He regretted that many Nigerian leaders were empty and had no idea about what development entailed. The former president said, if you ask most of our leaders why they want to be in the position they are craving for, you will weep for your nation over their level of emptiness as far as development issues are concerned. Chief Obasanjo urged policy consistency in order to attain development, while advising the government to appoint the brains into strategic positions in order to accelerate the development of the nation. To refresh our memories, Russia launches more drone attacks on Kyiv. 74 Rohingya arrested in India in newest crackdown. Giant strides claims as markers marks first year. State of emergency in Ecuador after murder of mayor, and S&P reduces Bangladesh's stance negative from stable. That's all on the news. Thanks for watching. I am Lois Strike.